Black girl tells Adam Sandler. She's hungry. What he did next left everyone in shock. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Washington Square Park in New York City. James Hoffman, a struggling screenwriter from Ohio who had moved to the city 3 years ago, sat on a bench watching his 7-year-old daughter Lily feed the pigeons with the last crumbs from their shared pretzel. His phone showed 4 unanswered calls from his landlord. Rent was 2 weeks overdue, and the pandemic had dried up what little freelance work he'd been able to secure. "Dad, I'm still hungry," Lily said, brushing salt from her faded blue dress, a hand-me-down from a neighbor's daughter. Her voice was small but matter-of-fact. James felt that familiar pang in his chest, the special kind of hurt that comes when a parent can't provide. "We'll head home soon, sweetheart. I think we have some soup left," he replied, knowing the cupboard was nearly bare. His next paycheck wouldn't arrive for 3 more days. 20 yards away, a man in a baseball cap and sunglasses sat alone, scrolling through his phone. Despite his casual attempt at anonymity, a few passers-by did double takes. There was something familiar about him. James didn't notice, too preoccupied with the mental math of surviving another week. Lily, however, had been watching the man with curious eyes. Without warning, she slipped from the bench. "Lily, wait!" James called after her, but she had already skipped toward the stranger. The man looked up as the little girl approached. His face, partially hidden behind aviator sunglasses, crinkled into a smile. "Hi," Lily said, rocking on her heels with the bold confidence only children possess. "You're Adam Sandler." The man's smile widened. "That's what my mom calls me too," he said with that instantly recognizable voice. James rushed over, mortified. "I'm so sorry," he began, reaching for Lily's hand. "No worries, man," Adam said, waving off the apology. "Your daughter's got a good eye. Most kids these days think I'm their grandpa's friend or something." He laughed in his characteristic way. "I'm hungry," Lily announced to Adam, as directly as only a child could. James felt his face burn with embarrassment. "Lily, that's not hungry, huh?" Adam interrupted, looking at the little girl with surprising gentleness. "That's a coincidence. I was just thinking about getting something to eat myself." He glanced up at James, seeming to register something. In the father's worn expression and tired eyes, there was a moment of silence as Adam appeared to consider something. He removed his sunglasses, revealing kind eyes that assessed the situation with more perception than his on-screen personas would suggest. "Actually," he said, "I'm meeting some friends at a place around the corner. They're bringing their kids too." This was a lie, but a kind one. "Maybe you guys would like to join. They've got the best mac and cheese in the city." He directed this last part to Lily, whose eyes widened. "Dad, can we?" she asked, turning to James with sudden excitement. James hesitated, pride warring with his daughter's obvious hunger. "That's really generous, but we wouldn't want to impose on your evening." Adam stood, pocketing his phone. "Look, I've been where you are," he said quietly, so Lily couldn't hear. "Sometimes we all need a break. No cameras, no big deal, just dinner." Something in the actor's sincerity made James reconsider. Here was a moment of kindness being offered with genuine respect for his dignity. "Well, if you're sure it's no trouble." James finally conceded. "Awesome!" Adam exclaimed with characteristic enthusiasm, making Lily giggle. "I know this great Italian place. The owner's mom still works in the kitchen. She's like 100 years old and nobody makes meatballs like her, trust me." As they began walking, Lily slipped her small hand into Adam's with the easy trust of childhood, chattering about her favorite characters from his movies. James followed a step behind, watching his daughter's animated happiness with a mixture of gratitude and quiet wonder at how quickly an ordinary day could transform into something extraordinary. None of them noticed the woman on the opposite bench who had recognized the famous comedian and discreetly taken a photo of this curious scene. a photo that would soon make its way onto social media and set in motion events none of them could have anticipated. Antonio's Ristorante was tucked away on a quiet side street in Greenwich Village, the kind of family-owned establishment that had somehow survived decades of changing neighborhoods and rising rents. Inside, warm lighting glowed against dark wood paneling, and the rich aromas of garlic, basil, and tomato sauce filled the air. "Adam!" exclaimed a barrel-chested man with silver hair and an apron, arms outstretched in genuine welcome. "Twice in 1 month! My mother will be so happy!" "Hey, Tony," Adam replied, accepting the man's enthusiastic embrace. "I brought some new friends. This is James and his daughter Lily." Tony's warm handshake and lack of surprise at Adam's companions told James this wasn't the first time the actor had arrived with unexpected guests. They were led to a corner table, partially concealed behind a decorative wine rack. A few diners glanced their way, but most returned to their meals with respectful New York indifference. "I come here when I don't want to be Adam Sandler, you know," the actor explained, unfolding his napkin. "Tony's dad gave me free spaghetti when I was doing stand-up and couldn't afford dinner. Never forgot that." As they settled in, James observed his daughter's wide-eyed fascination with everything, the candle flickering in a red glass holder, the black and white photos of old Italy on the walls, the heavy silver forks that felt substantial in her small hands. "Order whatever you want," Adam told them, passing James a menu. "But if you don't get the meatballs, we can't be friends." James scanned the prices despite himself. Even at this modest restaurant, dinner would have cost him half a day's wages. Adam must have noticed his hesitation. "Hey, I'm serious about those meatballs, and the spinach ravioli here changed my life. Lily, you like cheese, right? They make this mac and cheese that's not even on the menu. It'll blow your mind." Lily nodded enthusiastically, while James felt a complex emotion rise in his throat, something between gratitude and the ache of not being able to provide this experience himself. Their server, an older woman with reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck, approached with a basket of fresh bread. "Maria," Adam greeted her warmly. "These are my friends James and Lily. They're first-timers." "Then they must try everything," Maria declared, placing the bread basket down. "I'll bring the antipasto special to start." As Maria walked away, James leaned forward. "Mr. Sandler, Just Adam, please. Mr. Sandler is my dad, and even he doesn't like being called that." James smiled despite himself. "Adam, I want to thank you. This is incredibly generous, but I need you to know we're not looking for charity." Adam broke a piece of bread and dipped it in olive oil. "Man, do I look like a charity? I'm just a guy having dinner with new friends. Sometimes good things happen for no reason." He paused, considering something. "Can I tell you a story?" Without waiting for an answer, he continued. "When I was starting out, I was broke, like counting quarters for coffee broke. One night, I was sitting on a stoop outside a comedy club after bombing on stage, and this old guy sits down next to me, offers me half his sandwich. No idea who I was, just saw someone who looked hungry." Adam's voice grew quieter. "Never forgot how that felt. Not the sandwich, but the moment when someone sees you as a person, not a problem." James felt something shift inside him. It wasn't pity he was receiving, it was recognition. The food began arriving. Antipasto with olives, cheeses, and thinly sliced prosciutto, bruschetta with vibrant red tomatoes, and a special plate of mac and cheese that made Lily's eyes go wide. "This is the best thing I've ever tasted," she declared after her first bite, cheese stretching in strings from her fork to her mouth. Throughout dinner, Adam asked James about his writing, listening with genuine interest to his struggles and aspirations. He shared stories from movie sets, the mishaps and pranks, rather than glamorous celebrity encounters, making Lily giggle and even drawing reluctant laughs from James. "Dad, Adam makes the same faces in real life as in his movies," Lily observed with a child's honesty, causing both men to laugh. As they finished their main courses, meatballs for Adam and James, and that special mac and cheese for Lily, James realized he hadn't checked his phone once. For the first time in months, the weight of overdue bills and uncertain prospects had temporarily lifted. "Room for dessert?" Tony asked, appearing beside their table. Before James could decline, Adam interjected, "Tony's tiramisu, definitely, and your mom's cannoli, and gelato for the little critic here." He winked at Lily. As they waited for dessert, Adam's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned slightly, then returned it to his pocket. "Everything okay?" James asked. "Yeah, just..." Adam hesitated. "That photo someone took of us in the park, it's starting to make rounds online." James felt his stomach tighten. "I'm sorry if that's causing you problems." Adam shook his head. "Nah, it's fine. Just means our quiet dinner might get a little attention. Hope that's okay with you guys." What neither of them realized was just how much attention that single photograph would receive, or how it would change everything by morning. James awoke to the insistent buzzing of his phone. Squinting at the screen, he saw 23 missed calls, dozens of text messages, and hundreds of social media notifications. Confusion gave way to dawning realization as he opened the first message, a link to an article titled "Adam Sandler's Secret Act of Kindness to Hungry Child and Struggling Dad Goes Viral." The photograph from the park had indeed gone viral overnight. Someone had recognized James from his struggling writer's blog and pieced together his story. The narrative had taken on a life of its own. Famous comedian spots hungry child and struggling. Single father takes them to dinner and quietly pays for groceries for a month. The last part wasn't even true. Adam had simply treated them to dinner, but the internet had embellished the story with each sharing. James's phone buzzed again, this time with a text from an unknown number. "It's Adam. Sorry about the circus. You guys okay?" Before James could reply, there was a knock at his apartment door. Standing in the hallway was a delivery person with 4 large grocery bags. "I didn't order these," James began. "Already paid for," the delivery person said, checking his phone. "Message says, the meatballs were just the beginning. A." James stood speechless as the bags were placed inside his small apartment. They contained not just essentials, but thoughtful additions. Lily's favorite cereal, which she must have mentioned at dinner. Quality coffee, fresh produce, and even a small bouquet of daisies. As James put away the groceries, his phone rang. It was his landlord, but not with the expected ultimatum about rent. Instead, the man sounded almost apologetic. "Mr. Hoffman, I've received an envelope containing your rent for the next 3 months. The note said it was from a friend and to give you some space to focus on your writing." There was a pause. "I didn't know things were so tough. My sister's a producer for independent films. Maybe I could introduce you." James thanked him, stunned at this sudden turn of events. When he checked his email, he found messages from 3 literary agents who had seen the viral story and were interested in his work, particularly a screenplay he'd mentioned in a blog post months ago. By midday, news vans had gathered outside his building. Reporters were eager to interview the recipient of Adam Sandler's generosity to flesh out this heartwarming story for an audience hungry for good news. James didn't know how to respond to any of it. He felt overwhelmed, grateful, and strangely guilty about the attention. The story circulating online had transformed into something far beyond the simple dinner they'd shared. His phone buzzed with another text from Adam. "Media's a pain, but might be worth talking to them. Could help your writing career. Your call. If it gets too much, I know a place you and Lily can lay low." Later that afternoon, after declining most interview requests, James agreed to speak briefly with a respected entertainment journalist. Sitting on a bench in the same park where it all began, with Lily at school, he tried to set the record straight. "Adam didn't give us grocery money or pay my rent," James explained. He just saw a hungry kid and her dad having a rough time, and he acted with simple human kindness. The rest is just internet fiction. The journalist looked disappointed. But the groceries today and your rent? James shook his head. That was after the story went viral. I think he felt responsible for the attention we're getting. The real story is much simpler. A famous person chose to be kind when no one was watching. That's it. That's still a pretty good story, the journalist noted, writing something in her notebook. The thing is, James continued, finding words, for what had been bothering him, everyone's focusing on Adam's celebrity, making this about a famous person doing something extraordinary. But what I saw was just one person recognizing another person's struggle and reaching out. That could be any of us. As the interview concluded, James received an email notification that made his heart skip. A major publishing house was interested in his long-shelved novel manuscript, having found excerpts on his neglected blog. Walking home, James passed a coffee shop where the television was showing a reporter standing outside Antonio's Ristorante. The restaurant was now packed with customers hoping to sit at Adam Sandler's table. Tony was being interviewed, looking both overwhelmed and delighted by the sudden attention. Adam's been coming here for years, Tony was saying. Always the same. Treats everyone like family. That's just who he is when the cameras aren't rolling. James paused, watching as the report cut to a brief statement from Adam's publicist. Adam appreciates the attention this story is receiving, but believes the focus should be on the thousands of families facing food insecurity, not on one dinner. He's made a donation to the New York Food Bank and encourages others to do the same if they were moved by this story. James continued home, reflecting on how quickly life could change, not just from a chance encounter with fame, but from one person's decision to see another's humanity. His phone buzzed with a text from the school principal. The story had reached Lily's classmates, and she was feeling overwhelmed by the attention. The whirlwind that had started with a hungry child's honest words was now touching lives across the city, including their own, in ways neither James nor Adam could have anticipated, and it was far from over. 3 days after the viral photo, James sat in a midtown cafe across from Catherine Chen, a literary agent whose sharp eyes assessed him with professional interest. On the table between them lay a printed copy of his manuscript with sticky notes protruding from various pages. Your writing has something raw and authentic, Catherine said, closing the manuscript. It needs work, but there's genuine voice here. What intrigues me is how someone with your talent has remained undiscovered. James stirred his coffee, still adjusting to this new reality where people in the publishing industry returned his calls. I'd like to believe it's because of my writing, not because of all this. Catherine's expression softened. The viral story got you noticed, yes, but the foot in the door means nothing if there's no talent behind it. I wouldn't be sitting here otherwise. She tapped the manuscript. This book deserves to be published, and your screenplays show promise too. As they discussed potential publishers and contract terms, James's phone buzzed with a text from the neighbor watching Lily. She's fine? Playing Monopoly. Take your time. The past few days had been a blur of interviews, messages from long lost, contacts suddenly remembering their connection, and the surreal experience of being recognized on the street. James had been careful to correct the exaggerated story whenever possible, emphasizing that Adam's kindness had been simple and genuine, not the grand gesture portrayed online. Adam himself had maintained a respectful distance after the initial grocery delivery, texting occasionally to check in, but understanding that James needed space to navigate this unexpected spotlight. The actor had deflected questions in his own interviews, insisting that buying someone dinner isn't heroic, it's just being human. Leaving the meeting with Catherine, contract terms tentatively agreed upon, James walked through the bustling city streets, feeling both hopeful and uneasy. The attention was already fading, the internet's collective focus moving on to newer stories. But its impact on his life remained. His phone rang. It was Adam. "How's it going, man? You surviving?" The 15 minutes of fame. James found himself smiling at the actor's familiar voice. "Barely, but I just met with a literary agent who's actually interested in my book." "That's fantastic." Adam's enthusiasm sounded genuine. "See? Sometimes the universe throws you a bone or a meatball." "About that, I need to thank you properly. Not just for dinner, but for everything after. The groceries, and I suspect you had something to do with my rent." There was a pause on the line. "Look, I'm not going to lie about the groceries, but the rent wasn't me. Turns out when people hear a good story, they sometimes want to be part of it. Your landlord mentioned something about a GoFundMe some of your blog readers started." James stopped walking. This was news to him. A quick search on his phone revealed the truth. A crowdfunding campaign started by a reader of his blog had raised over $12,000 for the struggling writer and his daughter from the Adam Sandler story. "I had no idea," James said, his voice thick with unexpected emotion. "That's the thing about kindness," Adam replied. "It's contagious. People want to believe in good things." He paused. "Listen, the real reason I called, I've got this charity dinner thing tomorrow night. Super boring. Lots of rich people writing checks for after-school programs. Thought maybe you and Lily might want to come. Could be good for networking. And they have those little hot dog things wrapped in pastry that Lily might like." That evening, as James helped Lily with homework at their small kitchen table, now stocked with fresh food, he tried to process the events of the past week. "Dad," Lily said, looking up from her math worksheet, "Jacob at school said we're only getting all this stuff because that actor felt sorry for us. Are we charity cases now?" The question struck James like a physical blow. He set down his pen, choosing his words carefully. "Remember when you shared your lunch with Emma last month because she forgot hers? Was that because you felt sorry for her?" Lily considered this. "No, it was because she was hungry and I had extra." "And how did Emma act afterward? Did she treat you differently?" "No, she just said thanks, and then she helped me with spelling later." James nodded. "That's friendship, not charity. Sometimes people help each other without keeping score." He tapped her worksheet. "The important thing is what we do with the help we get." Later, after Lily was asleep, James sat at his computer and began writing, not his novel or screenplay, but a simple blog post titled "What Actually Happened in the Park." In careful, honest prose, he recounted the real story, a moment of human connection, a simple dinner, and the bizarre experience of having a private interaction become public property. He wrote about the struggle of accepting help, about pride versus practicality, and about watching his daughter navigate the complex emotions of their changed circumstances. He described Adam not as a celebrity savior, but as someone who recognized another person's humanity in a moment when it was needed most. As James typed the final paragraph, he realized something important. The true gift hadn't been the dinner or the subsequent opportunities. It was the reminder that people are capable of seeing each other, really seeing each other, across the divisions of fame and fortune. He ended the post with a commitment to use this unexpected platform to tell authentic stories and to remember, whether in success or struggle, the importance of truly seeing others as Adam had seen them in the park that day. After publishing the post, he opened a blank document and began writing a new story, one that had been forming in his mind ever since that evening at Antonio's. The words flowed with a clarity and purpose he hadn't felt in years. The notification chime of his laptop interrupted his writing flow. His blog post was already receiving comments, including one from a user named Sandman that simply read, "This is the real deal. Keep writing, man." The whirlwind wasn't over, but for the first time in years, James felt steady within it. 6 months later, Washington Square Park basked in early autumn sunshine. James sat on the same bench where the story had begun, watching Lily chase pigeons, in a new blue dress, not a hand-me-down this time. Beside him was a copy of Publishers Weekly, with a small but significant mention of his forthcoming novel. Life had changed, though not in the overnight rags-to-riches way the initial viral story had suggested. His book had sold to a mid-sized publisher for a modest advance. He'd landed a job writing for a television comedy show, not as a head writer, but with a steady paycheck and creative colleagues. They were no longer on the financial edge, though far from wealthy. The media attention had faded quickly, as James had expected. What remained were the relationships formed in its wake. Catherine had become not just his agent, but a trusted advisor. Tony from the restaurant now greeted him like family, and several of his blog readers had formed a supportive online community for aspiring writers. And then there was Adam. Their friendship had developed quietly away from public view. The actor had indeed invited James and Lily to that charity event, introducing James to industry contacts with genuine enthusiasm for his work. He'd given feedback on James's scripts, blunt but constructive, and occasionally texted random jokes or movie recommendations. James checked his watch. Adam was running, late for their meeting today, but that wasn't unusual. The comedy show they were now collaborating on, Adam as executive producer, James as part of the writing team, was in pre-production with 1,000 details demanding attention. "Dad!" Lily called, running back to the bench. "Can I get a pretzel? I have my own money." She proudly held up the $5 bill she'd earned, helping their elderly neighbor with recycling. As Lily ran to the pretzel vendor, James noticed a mother and daughter on a nearby bench. The girl, about Lily's age, wore a coat too thin for the autumn chill. The mother kept checking her phone, her expression growing increasingly worried. James recognized the look, the silent calculation of resources against needs, coming up short. Without overthinking it, he walked over and sat down. "Excuse me," he said to the woman. "My daughter and I are waiting for a friend who's bringing lunch for all of us, but he always orders too much. We'd really appreciate some help making sure it doesn't go to waste." The woman looked at him suspiciously. "We're fine, thanks." "Mom, I'm hungry," the little girl whispered, echoing Lily's words from 6 months ago. James smiled gently. "I know it sounds weird, but sometimes good things happen for no reason." He pointed to the restaurant across the street. "We'll be at that corner table if you change your mind. Any friend of mine is welcome." Returning to his bench, James found Adam finally arriving, signature cap and sunglasses in place. "Sorry I'm late," Adam said. "Production meeting ran long." "Where's the little critic?" James pointed to Lily at the pretzel stand, then nodded toward the mother and daughter on the bench. "I just invited them to join us for lunch." Adam followed his gaze, understanding immediately. "Antonio's? Where else?" Adam grinned. "Full circle, huh? I like it." He watched as the woman gathered her things, her daughter tugging her hand toward the restaurant. "Think they'll come?" "I hope so," James replied. "But that's up to them." Lily returned with her pretzel, breaking off a piece to offer Adam, who accepted it with exaggerated gratitude that made her giggle. As they walked toward Antonio's, James noticed the mother and daughter following at a distance. He felt a quiet satisfaction, not from grand gestures or viral fame, but from the simple act of seeing someone else's need and responding with humanity. Inside the restaurant, Tony greeted them with his usual enthusiasm. "The famous writing team, your usual table is ready." James requested a larger table instead, explaining they might have additional guests. As they were seated, he saw the mother and daughter hesitating at the entrance. "I told you they'd come," James said to Adam. You're learning, Adam replied with approval. The secret is to make it about them helping you, not you helping them. Preserves dignity. He stood, waving to the newcomers with genuine welcome. Hey there, we were hoping you'd join us. Tony's mom made way too much food again, and we need reinforcements. As introductions were made and menus appeared, James watched the nervous mother gradually relax. He recognized in her the same pride he'd felt, the same protective instinct toward her child, the same relief at a moment of unexpected kindness. Later, as they shared tiramisu and stories, James realized that the most valuable thing Adam had given him wasn't the meal that night or the career connections that followed. It was this lesson that the cycle of seeing and being seen, of receiving and giving, was what connected people across all differences. On the wall near their table hung a framed photograph, the viral image from 6 months ago, now part of the restaurant's celebrated history. In it, a famous comedian, a struggling writer, and a hungry little girl walked hand in hand toward an unseen destination. What the photograph couldn't show was the ripple effect of that moment. How one simple act of recognition had not only changed individual lives, but inspired countless others through its telling and retelling. The mother's phone rang, and she stepped away to take the call. When she returned, her eyes were bright with emotion. That was about a job interview, she told James quietly. I got it. That's fantastic, James replied with genuine enthusiasm. Maybe someday I can do this for someone else, she said, gesturing. To the table, Adam, overhearing, raised his water glass. That's how it works, not paying back, paying forward. As Lily and the other little girl colored together on the backs of paper placemats, James thought about the story he'd been writing. Not his novel or the television scripts, but the story of his own life. 6 months ago, it had seemed to be heading toward a sad, familiar ending. Now, the narrative had opened into something unexpected, not because of fame or fortune, but because one person had taken the time to truly see another. Outside Antonio's windows, New York continued its relentless pace. Inside, at a corner table partially hidden by a decorative wine rack, the simple miracle of human connection was unfolding once again. Not as a viral moment or headline, but as it happens every day. Quietly, genuinely, and with the power to change everything.